Records automatically.
Great.
All right, I believe we are live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Agile Auckland meetup with Radically. We're so excited to hear about this program. If you've been living in Auckland or living in New Zealand for any amount of time, you know about the Vodafone transformation. Radically partnered with Vodafone to just really improve their ways of working. And we're all curious to hear the secrets behind the sauce. So I'm going to turn it over to Edwin. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Edwin. And Dan, thanks.
Cool. Hey, thank you, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. Today, we're here to talk around some experiences of the Vodafone Agile Transformation. My name's Edwin. I'm one of the founders and of Radically, and my role today will be to be the host of the webinar. Big thanks to Beth and all of the Agile Auckland team for having us here today. Really good to be back associated with Agile Auckland, so thank you for that. So look, guys, as many of you know, we were Vodafone New Zealand's partner in their large-scale Agile transformation. As we understand it, this is the largest piece of work of its type to be run by a New Zealand company. So we feel really privileged to have done this work, but also we feel that it's really important that we support the New Zealand business community. And we think the whole New Zealand business community should actually be supporting one another and learning together. So we're really pleased to be able to share our experiences with you today. Guys, the platform we're using today is called Demio. It's a webinar platform. If you've got questions throughout the talk, just pop them into the questions panel. You'll see it on the right-hand side or the chat. The format today will be presentation, followed by some questions. Dan and Casper will be running the session today, and I'm just going to fade into the background and leave them to it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dan and Casper.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Ed. Hey, kia ora, everyone. Evening. Hey, thanks for taking the time to attend on an evening, and really cool to be part of Agile Auckland. So, hey, thanks, Beth, for organizing this. I do realize my shirt, I don't know if it shows up on your thing, but my shirt has some weird, funky, like, colors to it, and I think it's actually related to my webcam. So just a note for next time, I should probably not wear patterned shirts. So hope you guys all have a drink or something like that, and we'll get started. So when I'm presenting, I can't actually see your faces, so I just basically see my PowerPoint screen, so it's a bit lonely. What I wanted to, for those of you who don't know who we are, so we're a company called Radically. We are 3 years old, so we're quite a young company, and our mission is really to help New Zealand businesses evolve to meet the needs of a rapidly changing world. And we came up with this before COVID, and man, it's been really, really interesting times, I can say, for all of us living in New Zealand that have been through this. But what a privilege it is to live in our country with good leaders who are making good decisions. One of the things that we would like to cover off with you today is really just Edwin challenged me and Casper because a lot of times we're sort of working on the work that we're doing and we forget sometimes to just pop out of our bubble to share. And so Ed really challenged me and Casper to go, hey, Dan and Ed, you guys have sort of built up a bit of experience over this couple of pieces of work, and it'd be really good for you guys to give back to the community. So really for the next, I don't know how long we've got, 40 minutes or 45 minutes or something like that, we're just gonna try and bring some of the journey that we've been on, try and share, and our goal of the session is to democratize the knowledge and the tool set that we have. And so hopefully more of you who are going on this change can really bring about, use some of the learnings and the experience that we have to be successful at your change too. Casper, do you want to add anything?
Kia ora, everyone. Probably just wanted to quickly introduce myself. I'm Casper. I work in Radically. I was part from early days, from almost beginning on once Vodafone started the journey towards Agile, from early pilots, some trainings and thinking about the future, towards almost the time when we were able to build a team and the foundations within the Vodafone to continue the journey. So that was my role, and I'm really happy to talk to you, all of you today. And big question, please use chat to comment and engage with us, as well as if you have any questions throughout this discussion. Don't wait till the end. Just ask those questions. In Vimeo, we have possibility to mark every comment as a potential question that we'll go back to at the end. And I think we have a feature where we can vote on questions, like Slido type of voting, so we can bubble up the most important questions to all of you.
Awesome, cool. And it's lovely to see some friends from Vodafone here too. Hey, Ronal. Hey, Santosh. Good to see you guys. So if I can't explain the story well, you guys can jump in and help fill me in. Awesome. Hey, so a bit of an agenda. Could someone just put in the chat how long we've actually got? Because I actually have no idea what our time box is, and so if not, we might just keep talking. In terms of the agenda, the overview, what we wanted to do was give you guys 4 things. Overview of what we actually did, and sort of the nuts and bolts of what happened. The second one is just some insights around building capability. The third one was around our experience learned around big room planning. And then the fourth one is just generally when we go about a change like this, what are some of the lessons learned that we want to impart that we feel will help other organizations who are going about this change be successful too. So journey overview, I really love this quote. The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying small stones away. And the reason why I start with this quote is probably if I look back at when we first started working with Vodafone as a company, it was probably like 2018, late 2017, 2018, around there. And I remember the first thing that we did was, it was nothing to do with, can we run a big bang transformation? Can we look to change our culture? It was actually just a very, very simple but odd request. And I remember at the time we were working with a guy called Matt Williams. And I think, Casper, if you can just post the video here, for those of you who might want to go back, we have a video here around some of the work that we did with this team. And I was going to play it, but unfortunately I realized that the sound doesn't go through Vimeo. So what I might do is I might just talk to the video. So the request was a little bit odd. At the time, there was a consumer director who's basically the exec member who looked after all of consumer business unit. His name was Matt Williams. So back a couple of years now, and Vodafone's leaders, some of the leaders have changed. And I remember sitting down with Matt, and Matt said, "Hey, I've got these three groups of teams, and they're organized in a very functional, siloed way where marketing is done in this way, and I'd like to set them up as Scrum teams." And I said, "Gosh, that's a really interesting request." And I said, "Like, what sort of led you to that?" And he said, "Oh, Vodafone Group have these KPIs, and I need to deliver my KPIs by having 3 squads set up." And it was really interesting because I sort of had an opportunity to have a really interesting conversation and say, actually, what we need is we need your support, because we can't just set up these squads without support. They actually are quite a big change in terms of ways of working. And so got talking, and I think that's where, Casper, you really came in and started to have some really good conversations with the teams. And what we wanted to do is just paint a bit of a picture of what we did to start this journey about setting these 3 consumer squads up, because they were really quite key to us having an opportunity to then do a bit more work with Vodafone. Casper, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Dan said the context, we were asked to bring some of the agile to the business teams. So for the context, those teams are business teams, not software teams. And what they do, they create strategy and implement business decisions around the core Vodafone consumer products that we all use, like our mobile plans in prepay, postpay, broadband plans. So this is what those teams are doing, and they need to make choices every day, every week about what type of offer put to market. Let's say competition like Spark or 2 Degrees put a new offer to market, and now they need to respond to it, because every day that they are not responding to what's happening in the market, basically they are having financial loss, because the customer at the end of the day is making decisions saying, my contract is up to date, I'm looking for a new provider, and who's having the best offer in this moment of time. So every day, every week of delay is making a real tangible financial impact. And as most of us know from the software delivery, is that to really respond quickly to the market needs, you need to have this cross-functional group that will be able to understand the problem and create the solution. And it's no different to business type of teams, because for them to release something to market, it does require financial analysis, it does require creative thinking, it does require release to the store, make it operational, that every sales agent will know how to process and how to present the offer. So actually there is complexity. There's at least 10 different departments that need to play the part to make it happen. And while previously those departments were operating in more like a functional silos, it took a little bit of time for any problem to go through the system. So the problem statement for us was how might we decrease the lead time that is needed to respond to market for those urgent needs, but as well as work on those bigger strategic problems. And the second one was also to work on the engagement of the individuals. There was a lot of appetite to bring a little bit of more empowerment and engagement. The consumer leadership team from the engagement surveys, they saw drop in some of the areas of employee satisfaction and engagement. So they were wondering how this new ways of working might also help with that, because they had the feeling that probably it's a good solution or good way of addressing some of those challenges. So we took those two problems on board, and then we started to work with the team around how might we form those new squads in a cross-functional way that will be able to have a strong mission to deliver to, and will have some level of autonomy and the skills needed to deliver to it. So that was our challenge. It took us maybe a few weeks at the beginning just to understand the business and how work gets delivered to the customer, and then form those teams. And we ended up with forming those three main teams. One is looking after the prepay, another after postpay, and the third one after the broadband proposition. And from there, it was few months, I think 3 or 4 months of us coaching and experimenting, and us as Radically team learning about the business, and them as a cross-functional teams learning how might they change and challenge the traditional decision-making process to enable that.
And I think what's quite interesting, I remember, Casper, when we were working, probably a lot of us on this Agile Auckland call is talk is probably already really familiar with like setting up a squad and what the ceremonies of the squads are and how that kind of works. It was really interesting, like, for me to see some of the cultural things there, Casper, that came up. Like, I remember we were talking to the team around how decisions get made, and like PowerPoints getting shared, waiting weeks and weeks before people preparing 1 or 2 weeks for a decision. And when we talked to the leaders and the teams around actually shifting the culture and shifting leadership, it was actually, rather than teams going to the leaders to present information, why can't the leaders sit outside and actually make time, like an hour every day, for people to come to them with decisions? And so some of these things doesn't actually relate to agile ways of working, but it's quite a different mindset shift there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Michael is asking, is squad the same as a team? Yes, it's when we use the language squad, we mean Scrum team. So let's think in this one. And how large were those team squads? In this case, it was around 10 people, plus minus maybe 2. That was the size of those teams. And Dan, to your point, absolutely. So we started to understand some of the challenges, and one of those was the decision making. Was about the team was working around the leadership schedule, and what we found that this is often the bottleneck to make fast decisions and progress with the response to market. So we've done simple things like we asked all of the leaders to have from 10 to 11 to not have any meetings, but sit in the central location of the floor. So anyone, if needs a decision or guidance, can come to them with no PowerPoint, but with a booklet and a drafted proposition instead, and engage in a conversation of how to make the decision quickly and get the guidance of to do this or that. And simple things like that helped both show the leaders that they actually can trust more the people whenever they will start collaborating on the problem, as well as the people the teams feel more empowered in making those decisions or calls without thinking through every single details and have flash PowerPoints initially. So that was one of the examples of what we've done to help break some of those cultural mindsets that were slowing down the teams to be responsive. Because if you think about agility, it's about responding to change, and it's about being really, really responsive.
That's right.
Another small thing that I would like to maybe say is that once we started working with the teams, one overwhelming feedback that every team member was saying, leaders are changing their minds all the time. And everyone's saying, like, please, could leaders just stop changing your mind, just make a decision and stick to it. And what the funny thing that happened suddenly, once we started to ask the teams to take more accountability over the decision making, suddenly the teams that were the ones that were changing the minds all the time, because they started to have really good access to the information, to the market decisions, and they needed to be more accountable for the business outcomes at the end of the day. And they could see that they could understand why we need change decisions, sometimes week to week, because market changed. So we need to respond to that. And telco is a highly competitive environment, and it does require fast decision making. And sometimes it's really important to understand when we are locking strategic priorities versus some of the tactical one. And the tactical one is okay if they will stop because we have new information.
Awesome. So I think probably that gives you a view of some of the journey around setting up these 3 squads. Now, this 3 squads in consumer is a very, very small part of the whole Vodafone enterprise in New Zealand. And so the idea of chipping away one small stone at a time, we got to a point where actually I think it was late 2018 where there was Jason came on as the new CEO. Vodafone New Zealand looked at the overall strategy and came up with a refreshed strategy. And some of the pilots that had been going on across the organization, lots of pockets of different agile activity, actually the organization looked at it and going, in order to achieve our ambition and our strategy, we need to go on a bit of a culture change, and we need to look at how we work differently in order to deliver on our ambitions. And so there were 3 real key drivers for Vodafone to look at scaling up and embarking on a probably, I don't like the word, but a transformation. It's really looking at a refreshed purpose and strategy, looking at a different operating model. And at the time, they had something called the Digital Accelerator, which was really around how does Vodafone become a digital organization and experimenting around delivering different digital solutions. And the outcome was this is quite different to probably quite unique at the point where people and culture function within Vodafone had a mandate to run a program that would actually invest in changing the culture and changing the ways of working of the entire organization or parts of the organization. And what was really exciting for us as a company was that a lot of times our experience up until this point prior to working with Vodafone is that ways of working and change had always been led by technology. And this was one of the first times where we were working with someone at the time called Leona, and she was one of the business partners, and she was the main champion of this way of working. And it was so cool to see HR taking a lead in the organization. And I know working with our sponsor at the time, who was Anthony Welton, he had such a really good vision for how people are at the heart of this change, and ways of working and process change won't succeed if we can't win the hearts and minds of people. And so this is where the Radically team ended up sitting in. And our goal was, hopefully this next slide, was to do 3 things and support Vodafone with 3 things. One is, how might we embed this new Vodafone purpose and strategy across the organization with this new culture change? How do we develop a culture that supports the strategy? And how do we ensure that the workforce is future ready so that digital and ways of working are part of this new normal? So this is an example of, as Vodafone refreshed its strategy, the goal as an organization is to connect for a better future. There were a couple of different pillars that the strategy would need to be delivered on, and you can see at the bottom really, really clear things. Being ahead of the numbers, meaning looking at the EMPS, the MPS, the churn, some of these metrics. But I think it was really clear for the organization that in order to deliver on the strategy, it needed to change the way it worked, because what was working currently was not going to see it succeed in the future. So as a company, we'd been working sort of probably for a year and a bit, understanding Vodafone, helping them with small different pockets of work, came up with the opportunity that they decided they want to go on this culture change. And there were 5 key items that they asked us for help for. One was to help the executive team and leaders understand how they can lead in this new agile environment, to set up each of the tribes and support the tribe leads in designing their tribe, their structure, to ensure that sort of the way in which the tribe is set up means that they're applying the right principles. And number 2 was a really interesting one, because normally you think of the role as an agile coach as being the expert agile practitioner. But what really happened is that we looked at each business leader, which is a tribe lead, generally at a GM head of level, and they're really looking at how do they structure their work. They need a trusted advisor who not only understands their business, but then is able to give them right pragmatic advice around things like, actually, if you look at these roles, it's much better from a from an agile principles perspective, if we actually look at creating T-shaped skills here, or we actually create a functional team here. So it's actually looking at providing advice that would actually meet the goals of the tribe lead and their designs, but also really challenging and coaching them on the principles as well, which was quite a different role that our team had to play. One of the really, really interesting things in seeing that relationship form is the level of trust that ended up being built between the tribe lead and the agile coach. I remember when we went through this organizational change, a couple of tribe leads were really struggling with things like, hey, I really like this person as a person, but they're not the right person in my team. So what should I do? And some of these really interesting coaching conversations that normally an agile coach wouldn't be able to have with a senior leader, or would wish to have with a senior leader, we found ourselves getting more and more into. And so one of the things I think the future of the role of an agile coach is really to build that business acumen so that you can really help support a lot of these business leaders to make wise decisions, but from an agile context. And so that's one of the things that we found really interesting in this point. The third one is obviously building capability. We were set a really interesting, a really challenging challenge, which is Vodafone want to be self-sustaining on their own in a very short period of time. And so looking at this change, we looked at it and going to stand up, I think it was, Casper, how many tribes was it? Was 8 to 9, I think. 8 to 9 tribes. Each tribe had around 50 to 60 people. Stand them up as a new cross-functional team. We had to find probably, I think it was around 50 something squads that lived in each of these tribes.
Just to, because there are a few people that were asking about the language. So
yeah,
squad is basically like a scrum team. Very often not technical, not technologies, business people, and the tribe is a collection of the logical grouping of those scrum teams together. So
Thanks,
this is only just to give the context.
That's right.
The Vodafone model was using heavily some of the principles from the Spotify model. It's a good source to look at, as there are few good things and few things that I know that people are challenging. But over to you back then.
Awesome. So I think people have probably read the slide now, so I'm going to move on. So like I mentioned, it was probably about a year and a half of the overall journey when we looked at it. It was pretty much, we started in 2019, I believe. And it was really when we all came back from Christmas leave, it was like, right, we're going. And I remember, because we're part of the HR team, we were working with the HR team on the org restructure. And so basically each coach was paired up with the tribe lead. We went through a whole round of interview processes, which all our agile coaches were part of. So we interviewed potential candidates for leadership roles, interviewed them, all the scrum masters, product owners. And the reason why the agile coach was there was we interviewed for a growth mindset. So we actually designed specific parts of the interview process to help expose and bring out people that did have a growth mindset and people that really struggle with it. And it wasn't to say that people that struggle with not having a growth mindset weren't selected for the roles. But what was really cool was, because it was exposed, the tribe lead was then able to work with the people in the tribes to go, hey, actually, this was the outcome of the interview process. We'd like you to fill this role, but actually, here's your development plan and here's some coaching and support that you need. So what was really cool then, it was set up intentionally that people knew what success looked like, and that growth mindset was a key factor that enabled them to be successful. So a lot of time was spent during the January through March period to design the operating model, fill in the roles, really build that strong relationship between Agile coach and tribe lead. And literally, I think probably around February, March, the next challenge for us was, okay, now that we've got the team structures and the sort of people filled in the roles, we needed to really get going. And one of the methods that we use, which I'll talk about later on, is big room planning. So I believe around about the end of March, we had our first ever Vodafone big room planning. How many people were there, Casper? It was probably about 300-ish people in the big
I
room
think
planning.
350.
Yeah. So we had about
Or
350 people, like I mentioned.
Raoul is saying around 400.
Okay, 400 people. You guys know better than me. And so not only did we have, I probably didn't get a chance to share. At the same time, we needed lots of facilitators, lots of scrum masters. So at the time, Vodafone intention was to look at internal capability, and we were really happy and excited by that because we love to grow and grow people. And one of our goals when we work with organizations is not to be there for a long time. We want to help them stand up on their own 2 feet. So we actually went out, we looked into the business. There were heaps of good talent. We created an interview process that exposed great potential scrum masters who might not have experience. So we went out there, to the business and looked at people that worked in contact centers, people that worked in different parts of the business that would actually have good facilitation skills, had a good growth mindset. And I think we ended up hiring around 12 to 15 scrum masters. I think someone sent me the numbers yesterday and I haven't had a chance to look at it. About 12 to 15 scrum masters. So we had all these new scrum masters start. I think some of them actually started the day of big room planning. And so we had a whole bunch of people working on mobilizing big room planning, about 400 people in these kind of 30 to 50 squads. And I remember some of the scrum masters saying to me, it's like my first day on the job. I don't really know much about Agile. But what was really cool is we had a group of coaches there that could support the teams that needed help. But it was really awesome how all the squads just stuck in and just kind of trusted each other and knew that nobody was perfect and we were all on a learning journey together. And so the outcome, I think it was a 3-day big room planning. We ran big room planning. We got a 90-day plan for each of the tribes, and then after that we started to work in these 2-week iterations as a tribe, and that was really where stage 2 kicked in, which is really growing and stabilizing the tribe. We had an agile coach who was part of the tribe leadership team, working together with the tribe lead to make sure that the ways of working and the practices and the mindsets were being embedded into the tribe. Then we had scrum masters working with each squad to facilitate and run the events and champion and role model a growth mindset again. And that pretty much took us all the way through to end of October. With a couple of big room plannings in the middle, where we got to a point where we felt that things were actually sustainable, and then it was really to actually look at us stepping back and actually playing even more of a coaching role to help build internal capability. And so really, really happy that I think this was 2019 or 2020, or 2019, where this year, where we transitioned to an internal leader. So I don't know if David Morris is on the call, but David Morris was started as the new head of Agile about February or March, and we've sort of transitioned into their team where they're now picking up and running the practice themselves. So that sort of gives you an overview of the stages of the journey that we've been on. If you guys got questions, just feel free to post it in there. And it was really awesome. Like in terms of some of the comments and some of the feedback that we've had from people, the thing that we're proudest about is that we help to bring this culture transformation and human way of working in it. And I love this quote from Richard saying that we're able to work in such a human environment. Be myself in the last 6 months, the quality of conversation with senior stakeholders changed completely. And like Casper shared in the previous example about consumer, what changed was not really just the process. It was actually empowerment of people to understand the context, where no longer is information just solely held at the top and centralized intelligence making decisions. A lot of the context and information is democratized into the organization, where more and more power and authority is being delegated to the tribes. And so as part of that, they're getting more context, they're having more autonomy, they're having to be able to make more decisions, and therefore people feel more empowered. And that's when you harness the collective power of the organization.
And probably I wanted to just say or say again the importance of some of those early pilots and experiments. As Dan shared this quote about moving the mountain starts with small rocks. We got on the day where we had opportunity to have 400 people in one room that most of them never worked in agile way, but because the whole change was positioned as a people and culture and hearts and minds type of change, everyone believed in this vision. Someone asked it, everyone, probably it's saying everyone is not I can't guarantee it 100% believed, but I would say 80-70% of people believed in that. And the one of the reasons why we always encourage organizations to go before you will think about scaling, go on a multiple small pilots. So we're working in piloting that not only in consumer but in HR, in business, in digital. It's all to build big network of strong supporters of that, and the people that are going to talk to their colleagues, their friends, their peers about this vision, how exciting it is that we are going there together, rather than people feeling that it's done to them. So this is really, really, really important. And then this 3 months of all setting up to big room planning, we had a lot of open space. When we had big arena where everyone could come from the organization every day to experience, learn, and challenge about how the future might look like. We had educational stations where people could come and learn about the model, the growth mindset, have a challenging conversation with coaches. And learning and development team from HR, from Vodafone, was part of that. So we co-created this change journey together and gave people opportunities before the big day when we all started to work differently to experience and get a buy-in. So that was, I think, very, very critical foundations that took probably a year and a half to build momentum through pilots, because this is a big organization, and then 3 months of very strong connecting with people where they are at the moment and giving them vision that the direction we're going to is going to be really, really powerful for everyone.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I probably didn't mention, but it's super, super important as well, is the role of leaders. I remember how big room planning came up was we still actually hadn't planned how we were going to flip everybody into this new model. And I remember Ross, who's now the IT director, so equivalent to CIO, I just happened to have a chat with him and he said, "Oh, Dan, how did an organization normally do this?" And I said, I think that, you know, what I've seen that works is using something like a big room planning. And I role modeled some of my experience from having experienced Riskpack do it quite successfully. And I was just sharing that with them. And he said, "Oh, let's just do it." And I said, "Yeah, it involves 400 people across 2 days in the room." And he said, "Look, I trust you. Let's just do it." And I can say that probably Vodafone have been one of the most empowering clients that I and the team have probably worked with, in the fact that a lot of the things that we suggest, they really trust us. And because they really trust us, it gives us the ability to actually do our best work and actually make some of those things happen. And so I think I do see a lot of times when I go to webinars and talks, like, how do we convince our senior leaders? How do we convince our executives? At the time in which we did the work, I can say that Jason, as the CEO, was super supportive. He role modeled all the behaviors. We had really, really strong support from a lot of the leaders, and everybody was just hungry and seeing that their teams loved working in this way and was just so supportive. So I think the foundation of being successful in this type of change has to be the willingness and the appetite for leaders to role model as well. So we talked a lot about tribes, and just sort of wanted to give you a flavor for what these tribes look like. So really, we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 initial kind of actually each of these rectangles are, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, around 8 tribes. So we had marketing that really had 2 components, and this is how they did a lot of their marketing. It's actually an expansion of the work that we did with the consumer team. Base growth was all about focusing on how they grow their base. And then we had care. So care was all about how do we look at improving the way that we look at our contact center, our caring of our customer, a lot of automation. Chatbot was in this. Then we had digital channels, which is all about how does Vodafone improve its existing channels that it serves its customers on with digital. And then digital engineering is all about back end. So the idea is that there are teams that are sort of broken in this tiered layer, and each group would focus on delivering certain things that would serve each other. And every quarter we got together, we created a plan per tribe, a 90-day plan, but we also created a plan that interlinked with all of them, because some of them had interdependencies between each other, which is a really key part of big room planning. I won't go in too much to this because I think there's probably a lot where we can get lost in, but it's just to give you a flavor. The key thing I want you to get out of this is that the tribes are a mix between technology and non-technology people. And what we've actually found is, one of our insights is, it's actually so much easier to help people with this new way of working when technology is not involved. We found that a lot of the consumer teams, a lot of the business teams, their growth in terms of applying a growth mindset was a lot faster than a lot of the teams that were in the digital channels or digital engineering space, because the complexity of technology makes it a lot more challenging. So funnily enough, oftentimes we as Agilists think that working with business teams are a new challenge. It's going to be fun. It's going to be hard, but actually it's fun, but it's actually not hard. They actually love it, and it's actually quite easy to get a lot of really, really easy outcome, really good outcomes quickly there. Anything to add, Casper?
No, I think just this is
Sweet.
just to call out. This is the part of the picture because we have also a few we've had a
Awesome.
few tribes on the business side.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So plan on a page. I thought I'd just share this with you guys. This is actually what our plan on a page of what we did. So you can see sort of just broken down the different stages. We sort of had a stream of work up the top was about governance and operating model. So my role that I played there was really to fill in the head of agile role for a period of time until we could recruit someone, which David has now filled earlier this year. When we started the journey, we really needed to design, like, how are we going to work? What does Vodafone's ways of working look like? We needed to define how does a tribe look like when they're healthy. We needed to look at what's the roles and responsibilities of a tribe lead, a product owner, a scrum master, an agile coach. And then every fortnight or every week, I believe, I can't remember which cadence it was, I had a meeting with the exec team, and we just worked through what are the risks, what are the challenges. So it was a really key program that really did get a lot of attention, and whenever there's impediments, we got a lot of support as well. At the ground level, you can see that our intention was to really help with agile mindset, setting up the leadership team, designing the squads. But really, this tribe kickoff was big room planning. We also then started with a bunch of Radically coaches working alongside Vodafone coaches. So I believe the two Vodafone coaches were Grash and was Persis working with us then as a Vodafone coach? I think so, eh?
Yeah.
Casper. Yeah. So
Yes,
shout out to you guys if you guys are on the call. And very, very intentionally, really what we wanted to do was transition so that we're building more Vodafone coaches and then having less Radically coaches. So you can see very intentful with the ability for us to create a development plan. And we really believe that our job when we work with organizations is to get them up and running, be the scaffolding, but we're not successful if we're there for a long time. And then at a squad level or a team level, really it's help working our scrum masters working with the Vodafone scrum masters. And like I mentioned, we had a team of about 15 to 20 scrum masters. And then really just helping support each of the squads, working with the teams to really coach them towards high performance. So this was the entire sort of model that we used. Roughly, I think things went to plan. There were a few different things along the way that probably changed, but I probably would say, looking at this at a high level, looking back now, things are relatively as we planned. Expanding out from the plan of the page, we really want to make sure that the work that we did was linked to strategy. So we actually used a lot of the modern agile principles, and we turned them into Vodafone agile principles. So it was around creating great customer experiences, embracing try and learn, delivering value iteratively, and fostering growth and empowerment. So we wanted to make it their ways of working, but still have the growth mindset at the core. And this was a little bit of a one-pager cheat sheet that we had that showed how the ways of working tied in with strategy. Geez, we're probably getting closer to time now, so I'm probably going to keep going.
Probably 10 more minutes, and then we can open for questions.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, this is a really cool quote by TJ. Started working in Agile literally just 5 minutes ago, and look how far we are now, how much people have changed and how we communicate. And so you can see like the focus of this is really around people and culture, not about process. And that's something that we've been really proud of. I'll skip the stuff. I'll send out the slides so people can have a look at it. I will keep going through this. Probably the one thing that I do want to touch on is capability building. One of the things that I think is super, super important as part of this change is recruiting for a growth mindset. I can't emphasize this strongly enough. I remember we set up an exercise that the whole premise of this interview was around a scenario called doggy daycare. And because Vodafone is based in Smails Farm, a lot of people take the bus, and some of our team would take the bus, and you would hear for a period of 2 weeks, people were discussing doggy daycare because all the leaders and people had to go through an interview process around facilitating a workshop around doggy daycare, and it's quite powerful to actually recruit for a growth mindset. And the areas that we found that we had the most challenge later on the transformation was when people that we interviewed who exhibited like a strong opposite of a growth mindset and didn't have those behaviors, who were then placed into the roles because they had no other choice, or actually there was a business need. Those became the main centers of challenges. So I do encourage you guys, when you guys are working on your pieces of work, really do put in this like a little bit of an intervention and be hard that you as agile coaches and as an organization need to interview and vet people for a growth mindset. I think it is one of the key criteria to be successful. I think the other thing is make sure you look for internal talent. I have a bit of a pet peeve where I believe that the role of an agile coach or a scrum master, the skill sets actually are quite common, because if I look at so for example, working a lot with HR teams, HR do a lot of facilitation. They do a lot of business partnering. They do a lot of consulting. They do a lot of coaching. But often those types of roles will not look to apply for an agile coach role. And those inside an organization, you have good talent that have those raw skills. It's much, much better for you to look for internal talent and train them in agile knowledge. If they've got the right mindset, give them the tools, and then they understand your business. They can make this way of working work for your organization. And I think the next one that has been important for us is make sure you balance training with on-the-job learning. A lot of companies that I see, they go on, say, like a 2-day Scrum course, or they just do a lot of agile mindset training, and then they don't create a program that is actually breaking those training courses down into on-the-job learning. I think probably a lot of people here would agree with me, like just because you got some certification doesn't mean you're qualified to do a good job. And so it's really important that when you do look for internal talent, recruit for a growth mindset, give them opportunities to actually practice in the job. Look after some squads, look after a tribe, have one-on-ones with leaders, actually practice the work so that you can improve and learn your skill. And I think that's a really important part of growing talent. I think Casper will post a video here around Future Ready, and I do encourage you to check it out. It was sort of a bit of a side tangent that was born out of building internal capability. I know at the time, and one of the things that really motivated our team is Vodafone's values. And I remember having a conversation with Anthony, who was the HR director at the time, and he said, Dan, we've got a bit of a challenge because, what we want to do is we really care about our people. We want to show that we care about them, but at the same time, there are a bunch of people that are exiting the business, and they think the word that they used at the time was they're transitioning onto a new job, and we want to support them. And so I know that from talking to Ed, he had an idea a couple of years ago about this idea of something called Digital U, where we would actually create a curriculum or program to retrain people who were displaced in the workforce with digital skills. And we floated the idea with Anthony. We said, hey, look, we've got a really cool curriculum that we're already running with you guys. Why don't we give some of these people who are displaced the opportunity to apply to be part of a program where we can actually take them on a journey, retrain them on some growth mindset, teach them some facilitation skills, teach them the basics of being a Scrum Master, and actually look at some New Zealand businesses that will be willing to give them an internship. And so it was awesome. Vodafone ran this experiment with us. We partnered with a couple of companies. We partnered with Vector, with Genesis, a couple of different other companies, Aeroqual, and all of them gave these future-ready participants that were trained up I think it was a 6-week internship, and they got to act as the role of a Scrum Master on site. And at the end of it, we helped to partner them with a recruitment agency to find them a job in this new role as a Scrum Master. And a couple of people ended up getting jobs in these companies that they interned for. And so I really just want to, I mean, a big value of ours at Radically is impact at scale. And I really do believe that there's more that we can do as Agilists and people that have this craft to help other people that have a passion, the growth mindset, and some facilitation skills to really come into this field, because the demand to help support organizations on this is high, and there's a role that we all can play to democratize our skills. So that's what this video is supposed to be for. Big room planning, there's another video that Casper will chuck up there, so you guys can have a look at it. But I think probably what I would say is, if your organization isn't running some kind of quarterly planning and you are wanting to work in an agile way, I do really encourage you to have a look at big room planning. It is a very, very powerful planning tool. We've run it with a number of organizations already, and one of the things that big room planning is, you get the people who are doing the work together for a day or two, you plan out what does the next 90 days look like, and you get leaders working with people to co-create a shared common plan. And then at the end of the quarter, the group of leaders and people who are doing the work come together again and review, how's the work gone, what have we achieved, and what does the next 90 days look like. It's very much like sprint planning, but expanded to a quarterly horizon. And so we believe there's real power in getting people together to do planning. One of the challenges that you see oftentimes when we don't do planning together as a wider team or wider organization is, everybody's calendars fills up, and whenever you need to talk to another person, you've got to book a meeting that takes a week or a week and a half, and then you talk through the dependency. And oftentimes there's a lot of value in having people in the room together, having that conversation and aligning up front. And so that's one of the insights that you'll see people share when you watch the video.
Absolutely, there is a comment. One of the leaders was saying he felt that they had 1 month worth of decisions, and a conversation happened within a day and a half, where we had like this intense planning period. Everyone who was needed to make a decisions was in the same space, the same location, and immediately they could see the challenges and resolve them on the spot. And this is like investing this time upfront help everyone to go together to chase for the really, really big and important strategic objectives.
Awesome. All right. So, hey, I'm conscious I want to give you guys time for questions. I'm sorry that we probably didn't get to go into a lot more level of detail than I would like to. I'm just trying to give you guys a flavor of what we've achieved and what work we've done. And I believe there's a couple of videos will give you more insights. I believe there's like a written case study that we've got online. But also the other thing is, if you guys ever want to know a little bit more, just feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to share our knowledge and share what we've learned and been through as well. So this is something that we've taken away, and we actually started with this slide when Vodafone asked us to pitch for this work. They said, what do we need to be successful? And we said, you need 4 things. One is we need to keep it simple. It's more important that we understand the intent behind words rather than the words themselves. So a lot of times people get caught up in words like tribe and scrum and all this different jargon, but actually, let's just keep it simple. Let's use simple words. Let's talk to our people simply. Let's focus on the values and behaviors. Let's not focus on the process. And let's be consistent in the language that we use. So we believe keeping it simple and pragmatic is really important. The second thing is that because we're very big advocates that Agile is actually a culture change. It's actually all about mindset, hearts and minds. We needed to win people over to understand that we want to be really clear about our why. I'm not quite sure how your experiences have been, but a lot of organizations we go into, they're quite traumatized by Agile. Either they see that Agile links to big restructures, or they think that consulting companies are going to come in and tell them what to do, or they've been burnt in the past because they've had a really dogmatic experience with Agile. So we spend a lot of time helping people understand that it's actually about helping you be more powerful. It's not about forcing you to use some process, and not about scrums and iterations and all that kind of stuff. We believe that in order to be successful, it's got to be a culture change, not a process change. Growth mindset is really important. Be transparent. The next one that's super important for us as well is have deep experience, but also wear it lightly. And I think you might have seen that quote at the start of our slide where Katie said that she probably wouldn't have been there. One of the things that Katie Williams, who was the head of HR at the time, worked really closely with me, said, love that you guys have deep expertise, but you wear it so lightly. And I think that's one of the challenges that I would probably challenge a lot of our agile coaching community on is how do we show up as deep experts, but to the people that we coach and to the people that we work with, we wear it lightly. I think nobody gets value from a person just spouting agile textbook stuff to them. But what people do get value from is someone who really understands the ins and outs of a high performing team, the principles, how an organization can become a modern company, and translates that to their situation. And I really feel like we as agile experts need to be more kind of like your GP, where you talk to them, understand the problem, and you actually go, here's the right medicine for you, not telling them all the things that they need to do and how to do it, that we can't break this time box or whatever, And so I think it's really important that we take that pragmatism, but also be grounded in deep expertise. So you probably have read all the slides while I'm talking. The last one is great leadership. We believe that super, super important that any successful change needs to have good leaders role modeling the values. We talk a lot about radical candor, learning to give each other radical candor feedback because we care, but that we also want to help each other grow. So that's been a really, really key part of the journey as well. So I know that Casper and I sort of talked a lot. I want to sort of maybe open it up for questions and see what people have put as questions. Do we just answer the questions
We
there?
have questions in the chat panel.
Yeah.
I mean, you can either work top down, bottom up. You can just randomly select some.
Did I say this? Answer it live. I just clicked on Cheryl's one.
We have 24, so maybe you can ask, maybe Dan, you can pick, maybe Edwin Sanos, you can scroll through, because we have 24 questions, it's a lot. So probably, Edwin, if you can select a few interesting ones, and we'll start with this.
Awesome. Hey, Cheryl. Hey, good to see you on the call, Cheryl. Hey, really good question. So Cheryl's question is, did you base your change management strategy on any well-known change management frameworks? Hey, it's a really good question. Probably our answer is no. And in hindsight, one of the things that we probably could have done better is a more structured change management process. We had a change manager working alongside of us who was Persis, and her background was as a professional change manager, and she was working for Vodafone. So she really helped me to put together the plan, give me advice on where we're missing certain things, how we should focus on aligning our stakeholders, how we should work with the exec team to keep them updated. And so I really relied on her expertise to really help us make sure that the plan was good. And I would probably say that she has some kind of model that she uses, but I think without her expertise, we wouldn't have been successful. So I definitely think that change management plays a really important role.
Oh, absolutely. And we were talking a lot about building the foundations for this activity when we asked 400 people to trust us and go on the journey. And all the activities beforehand were focused on, you used, Cheryl, the ADKAR model. So it was actually about building awareness through so 100%. Many pilots, and then talking to them and getting executive and leadership team to talk to this future vision. So we started to build desire as well. And by running open sessions where everyone could come and talk and think about how the future might look like, we built the desire as well as started to build the knowledge. And then once we moved on the journey, we put a lot of focus on knowledge build across leaders, product owners, as well as Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. Probably then the last part of this ADKAR model, the ability and reinforcement, were something that we potentially could be more intentful about. But yeah, good question. Thank you.
Hey, next question is from Jim. Maybe this is Jim Buchan. If it's Jim Buchan, hello. How did you create an environment of psychological safety with such radical change? I think one of the things that I would probably say is, sounds really bad because I've been working in consulting for a while, but I think every few months I would say to the team that at Vodafone that we work with, man, you guys are such good people. Not that we haven't worked with good clients in the past. We generally do work with good clients, but I think a lot of our team just found Vodafone as really good values, good culture, just nice, genuine people to work with. And the reason why I say that is it translated into the way they were, like a lot of the tribe leaders and the people that were at the head of level that reported to the exec, they really wanted to do what's best for their people. And when we gave them support and coaching around creating psychological safety, they really embraced it. And I believe that this is, no, it's our job to help empower the leaders and challenge the leaders when they're not, how to create psychological safety. But at the end, we can't force them and we can't do it on their behalf. And I would say that there was psychological safety because each of these leaders actually took on the advice and really tried to make it safe for their team.
Yeah, I would say also two things. Like we had also heavy support as a wider team that was leading this change from the internal communication team that was helping us to frame messages, helping us to communicate through multiple channels how we take people on the journey. And then the senior leadership, starting with the Jason Parish, JP as a CEO, when we opened the big room planning, JP said, next quarter, we are going to do 50% things wrong and 50% things right. But he's excited about this 50% stuff that we're going to do right and not much about those things that will go wrong. And hoping that next quarter, it will be 60% to 40% ratio. So it's leading from the growth mindset from day one. It's not about how good we are. It's all about how we can be better. And really deeply embedding this on all aspects of the change, from communication through our open awareness session to even the way how we're recruiting people, and really focusing on that. It takes a lot of the pressure from people and this feel of fear.
Yep, awesome. All right, next question is from Silva Ganesh. Based on the op model, what kind of ceremony meetings was implemented to connect business and digital team? Casper, this is your question. I have no idea. I do, but you probably have answered better than me.
No, it's good question. So, within each of the teams within the tribe, they had weekly meetings of the product owners when they were talking about the high-level key priorities. And then in terms of connecting with the digital teams, probably there were two types of mechanisms. One, whenever there was needed very strong daily collaboration, because it was early days of the project, of the initiative, when there was a lot of ambiguity about the high-level solution, we were using the Scrum of Scrum type of framework when teams were getting together to update each other, but also representatives from different teams were joining Scrum meetings, daily stand-ups of the other team, so they could really understand what's happening around. So that's when we needed a very close collaboration, and where probably there was more light collaboration needed, but more decision on the big rocks. The key process for us was actually big room planning that we were repeating quarter to quarter, because once we created this alignment on the priorities, what we're going to focus on, what not, then it was using those events that we all know, like sprint review, where the business leaders were coming and joining the sprint review of a digital team and giving the feedback on the solution. One area that I was working in was the broadband area, and we had a digital team that was developing broadband sales platform, and we had a broadband business team, and they were physically, even for the quarter or 2 quarters, we put them sitting close to each other. So they were on the one floor and building this cohesive understanding of each other's needs, but also they were just joining each other's sprint reviews and attending stand-ups when there was need for close collaboration. So we had some formal places, but a lot of that was also the coaches and the Scrum Masters identifying, hey, there's a need for collaboration. Let's build this bridge and keep it like that for a month or 2 months and see if we can scale it down or not.
That's right. Cool. Hey, I'm 6:45, and so I might hand it back to Edwin or Beth, or maybe Beth. Just wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to share. Like, it's sorry we couldn't answer all your questions. Maybe we will take them down and maybe we might have a go at responding to them outside of this call. But hopefully you guys found this valuable and we were able to share some of our insights from the change. And if you guys want to find out more, just have a chat to us or talk to Beth.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. That was amazing, and it's a lot of information. So we're going to have a recording of this on our YouTube channel. Radically will also post it on their channel. So if you missed anything or need a recap, we'll have that video available. Just a few things for Agile Auckland. Again, thank you for joining the community. Next Tuesday, we have a meetup a bit about trust. So that should be amazing. So that's the regular meetup with our Zoom channel. And then November 4th, we're going to be doing an in-person event at Genesis. So they have just gone through redesigning their kind of operating model, their Agile operating model. So we'll have that at Genesis on November 4th. So yeah, thank you guys for sharing. An amazing meetup, an amazing presentation. Let's get those questions answered. Keep them coming. And thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
No problem. You guys are awesome, and thank you, Beth, for being awesome as well.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
All right, guys.
See you, everyone. Bye.
See you.
Bye.